It is easier to say, yes, we appreciate contrast. When you are looking out into your world and everything you see is easy to feel good while you look at it. And we know it is more difficult when your attention is drawn to those things that as you give your attention to them, you feel discomfort, and then your logical human response is, we just need to get rid of anything that makes us feel uncomfortable. And we're wanting you to remember that as long as that is your plan, you're going to have a hard time, because the entire universe has been established to provide contrast and difference and variety, and you knew it coming in. You never, ever expected that anyone would organize this time-space reality so that it contained only things that pleased the individual called you. You knew that variety was essential to the forming of new conclusions or determinations or desire. You knew that desire could not happen within you without contrast that produces it. And further, and most importantly, you knew, part of you still knows, that contrast that produces the desire is the summoning of life forward, and that our literal eternity is dependent upon the existence of contrast. So can you feel how simple this is? You're standing in the middle of an environment, and let's say something happens, not too hard to imagine, something happens that you really would not choose, something that you are so opposed to, something that you cannot even fathom, something that you really do not want to happen. And in the midst of all of this contrast is born within you a desire for something different from that, a balancing desire born out of you. And in the moment that that desire is born, source energy goes to work on responding to it. And instantaneously, you as an individual or you as collective consciousness would come back into balance if you are able to find harmony with the desire that you've given birth to. If you give birth to a desire and you do it all day, every day, and that desire shoots out of you like this flashing rocket, and then you spend more of your time talking about where you are and how you have been traumatized into that desire, rather than talking about what the desire is and how that feels, then you might be, like so many physical humans, you might be, without even knowing it, holding yourself in vibrational harmony with the very thing that you do not want that gave birth to what you do want, but you must be a vibrational match to what you do want in order to let it in. The three parts to the deliberate creative process are: first, ask. Well, we really do not need to hold workshops on asking, do we? Because the contrast that surrounds you continually puts you in fully conscious, sometimes unconscious, but always asking places. You're not asking with your words while you can. You are asking with the vibration that emanates from you. You are asking whether you know you are asking or not, and the universe hears every single request. So the first step is ask. The second step is not your work at all. Universal forces, universal source energy, God force, creative life force, whatever you're wanting to give title, answers. But the third part is really your work, and that is you must let it in. You must be in the receiving mode. So the art of allowing, we think, is a very nice title, because what it says is, I want to be in the receiving mode. I want to be in the mode of letting it in. And it is the most easy thing in the world to teach, because when you are in the receiving mode, you always feel good. Good feels good. So if you are feeling frustration, it means you're not in the receiving mode of something you want. If you're feeling anger, it means you're not in the receiving mode of something you want. So you ask yourself, well, how have I been feeling lately? What's my mood? What's my attitude? What's my letting it in? Sometimes you notice that relative to different subjects, you feel different ways. If we were standing in your physical shoes, if there was any subject that was upsetting to us, we would do our very best not to focus upon it. If there was any subject that thrilled us, we would do our very best to give it a larger proportion of our attention. because this time-space reality is this perfectly balanced place that is large enough to accommodate every desire that every one of you could ever hold. So the world doesn't need to be changed in order for you to live a joyful life experience. You just have to set your tuner to joyful experience. As humans, you say, well, I have a hard time only focusing upon what I want. And we say, you don't have to only focus upon what you want. You can give your attention all over the place. But it is our clear recommendation that if you find yourself giving your attention to something that begins to produce uneasiness or any range of negative emotion within you, use that guidance in the same way you would use the guidance in your fingertips. As you find yourself laying on a hot stove, you wouldn't say, I don't think I should have to take my fingers from this stove. I think I should be able to put my hands on any hot object that I choose. And we say, we think so too. We think you have the full, absolute right to lay your hands on any hot stove you choose. The question is, where is your threshold for pain? The more sensitive your hands are, and the more unwilling to endure pain, the longer your hands will last. The more sensitive you are emotionally, and the more unwilling you are to endure discomfort, then the more joyful you will be. The longer you will be in the receiving mode, the more exalted your physical life experience will be. So then you say, but I've been trained to be objective. And we say, you were sort of born with that feeling. You were born with this curiosity. You were born with this desire to peruse. It's all part of the sorting and sifting process. And you know, you can do quite a bit of perusing, quite a bit of contemplating, quite a bit of probing before you begin to feel strong emotion about things. But when you begin to develop something as strong as something that you would call fear or anger or blame, then it's time to stop and say, wait, I may be holding myself consistently or powerfully apart from what I really want. At the outset here today, we want to remind you of something really important, and we think sometimes you've forgotten this. You certainly knew it when you came forth into your physical body. But as time goes by, it becomes less and less dominant in your thinking process. You are extensions of source energy. And this source energy of which you are a part is this pure, high, fast, delicious, loving vibration of well-being. It is the stuff, it is the energy of well-being, and it is the only stream that flows. When you, by virtue of what you are choosing to think about, are allowing a fullness of that stream to flow to you and through you, you thrive. And you can never really get very far apart from it, because even if you did find thoughts that were not in harmony with it, and even if you did pinch yourself off from it enough that you withered and eventually croak, in that reemergence back into source energy, you would be fully flowing with the energy again. So there was never any great risk. Also, we want to say to you that that is not the only thing that causes any of you to make your transition into source energy. Death is not about pinching yourself off from the source. Sometimes you just want source energy so powerfully that you achieve vibrational harmony with it, and death is the answer that comes. Allowing means letting yourself be the loved, loving, healthy, vibrant, brilliant, eternal, joyous, wealthy, in regards to all things that you consider to be good, being that you really are, that you've come forth to be. You're doing a very good job. As we feel the vibration of that which is you, we can feel that you are among the most allowing of those on your planet. You live in an environment You've been taught by those who have come before you to allow proportionately in the scope of human experience in a very wonderful way. And we understand and want you to understand that this is truly a gathering of fine-tuning. Your world is not broken, and neither are you. And it is not critical that you understand this because you're doing all right anyway. We just think that it is so much more fun to deliberately set forth an idea and then to deliberately achieve vibrational harmony with it so that you are aware of all of the nuances and circumstances and events that the universe lines up for you in response to what you've asked for. To be a deliberate creator out here on the leading edge, it just does not get any better than that. Your source energy is flowing to you and through you always. And sometimes you hear it more clearly than others. And this gathering is about helping you to be so aware of who you are and who your inner being is and how it feels to be fully functioning energy in this time-space reality, that you are thriving consciously in the way that you have intended.
New Age persons talk a lot about karma. What is the truth about karma, and should we be concerned about it?
It's a big topic, and many people mean different things by it. But if you mean by karma that you are eternal beings, we say we agree with that. If you mean by karma that you come forth into a physical experience and that which you live, you collect as part of a broader consciousness, we agree with that. If you mean by karma that you have lived a physical life experience where you didn't do so well, and so now you've been assigned another physical life experience in order to compensate for not having done well before, we say that is inconsistent with what we know of source energy.
Yeah.
When you think about it, when you feel negative emotion today, the reason that you're feeling negative emotion is because something in your physical environment has caught your focus. And in focusing and therefore vibrating, you have achieved a vibration that is not compatible or not harmonious with the whole stream of source energy that is really you. In your thought, your inner being is not joining you. You have chosen a thought that is outside the vibrational range of your source. Your source never stops flowing to you, but sometimes you choose things to think about that take you vibrationally outside of that realm. And so that's what that feeling of being disconnected is. That's what negative emotion is. So if your inner being will not join you in your negative thought here today, what do you think the odds are of your inner being punishing you for a past lifetime by sending you forth into a new one to compensate? This is man's perspective from his position of disconnection. What do you think karma means? What did you mean when you used the word?
I had learned that karma was a teaching process whereby when you have had one existence and at a previous time and you inherited what they call bad karma, that had to be compensated for in a following.
Well, part of that is right and part of that isn't. In other words, you cannot help but expand, and so the growth or expansion is assured, and so therefore everything really is a teaching process.
Mm-hmm.
But you are not being punished. You come forth as creators.
It's an opportunity to further develop.
And it's an interesting thing. From your physical perspective, you have no means of comparing progress. Who gets to decide what the expanded experience is? Mm-hmm. Someone might be working in the garden, so connected to source energy and so in love with life and allowing a fullness of who they are to flow through them in that moment. And we would say they are genius, focused on earth, living life to its optimum. And another who is engaged in a mathematical equation might say, well, I have not had time for such silly things as working in the garden. Anyone can go and dig in the dirt. I am a genius involved in physical mathematical equations. I am the true genius. And we say, whatever rings your bells. If focusing upon that mathematical equation brings delight to you, then you are genius in your moment, you see. But there are so many people disconnected from source energy and sure that the activity that they are involved in is more evolved or more enlightened than the activity that someone else is involved in. And we say, and in that judgment, they are but a scanty shadow of who they really are.